All right. Here we are. It is Chris Falcon, and this is the Rebel Mindset. Today, I've got an awesome co-host with me, an incredible man, a man that I like to call the Mr. Miyagi of serial entrepreneurs. I've got Todd Holmes with me here. Really, but people call you Homer.
Right. Chris, good to be here, man.
Thank you. And I'm glad you're here. You know, someone asked me, is it Homer like Simpson, or is it Holmer?
So I got the name by... I had a great football game one time, and they kept mispronouncing my last name, so they kept calling me Todd Homer, and so the name stuck from like sophomore year in high school. So like it's probably technically Holmer,
yeah,
but I just say Homer.
But I like Homer.
Yeah, right. It's just easy.
I think it works.
My parents call me Homer. I got married as Homer. Like it's just there's not too many people who actually know me as Todd Holmes, actually.
So yeah, I mean, I said to some people, I'm like, yeah, so I got Todd, coming in. Some people that are mute, they're like, who? Right. Mutual friends of ours. I'm like, Homer. They're like, oh, Homer.
Right.
They had no idea who Todd was.
Exactly.
So crazy. Dude, your backstory is insane, man. I mean, and we'll get into that. But I mean, the projects, the initiatives, the businesses, the companies that you have either started, sold, worked with, it's an incredible list of stuff.
Thanks, man.
And again, I mean, I call you the Mr. Miyagi of serial entrepreneurs, but I say that with all due respect because I myself am probably what most people envision when they think of a serial entrepreneur, which is somebody that's just dabbling with a bunch of stuff and having zero success. But that's not really you. And as the title of this episode of the Rebel Mindset is, which is the art of brewing success, I mean, you have had a lot of success with the things that you have dabbled with. Where did all this come from? I mean, some people will talk about like the entrepreneurial instinct being something that you're born with or something that you learn. Why did you get into this whole realm of dabbling with stuff? Were you born with it? Did you learn it? What's the backstory?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because starting off as a kid, like I just worked hard. I was always working, but I wasn't like one of those guys. I mean, there's certain people who just have like the entrepreneurial DNA.
Yeah.
And I never really considered myself kind of that kind of bon vivant. I was more like I'll work hard. When I came out of college, I fully expected to work in real estate for the rest of my life. My dad did it.
Yeah.
And, in commercial real estate. And, so early in the process, one of my buddies was like, I want to start this beer club. And I had another friend, a mutual friend who was actually brewing craft beer in Boulder, Colorado, or Telluride, Colorado, actually. And he was telling me how hot the craft brewing industry was. And I was like, as opposed to doing a wine club, let's do it with craft beers. And so we just kind of started off. And then once I got the bug, I really got the bug.
You got it.
And, and then, it just kind of cascaded from one thing to the next. And it's funny, like, I've never really worked for anybody. Even when you're in real estate, you're kind of working for yourself.
Yeah.
So, when you look at, probably my ability to get hired by a real company, it's zero.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I have no formal training.
Yeah.
I have nothing. You
don't know how to interview. You're like, what is this?
It's a disaster.
Right?
I mean, really, like if I had to go get a job today, I'd be screwed.
But what's funny, I mean, that beer company that you're talking about, that little beer company, I mean, that was Beers Across America.
Right.
And that was back in, and I remember that. I mean, that was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
A concept that I don't think anybody had ever really heard of before. And that was to subscribe. It was a membership.
Yeah.
And you would get different beers, different craft brews from all across America delivered to your home monthly. Is that what it was?
Right.
I mean, was this a concept that
Yeah, we created it. I mean, it was the early 90s. And so we really built, there was a couple like wine clubs. And so we're like, the wine sucks, let's start doing something with craft beers. And this is, the craft brewing industry was really starting to germinate at the time, but it was still really nascent. And so what we did was just, we started calling these breweries, telling them what we were doing. And, we started off with 500 members, literally like we put an ad in Chicago Magazine with an 800 number, 854 beer. Like, I still remember. And we didn't have any expectations of what was going to happen. And so we directed the phone line to my partner's parents' home. And they're literally picking up the phone going, hey, it's the Amorosos. And they're like, hey, I'm here to order the beer club. And that's how it started. And literally like 2 years later, we're on the Today Show.
Come on.
And literally our phones are blowing up. And, we went from literally a zero startup with no capital infused to $22 million business with 175,000 active customers in 3 years.
I am going to seriously throw my pen at you in a second. Hold on. We got to dissect this for a minute. In 2 years, you went from literally nothing was going on to a multi-million-dollar operation. You're on the Today Show talking to some crazy anchor person.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, like they came out, they filmed a segment on us. And so it just kept getting pushed back and back and back. So right before Christmas, they aired it, and which was really helpful because everyone was kind of giving it as a gift, which ultimately kind of became the downfall of the beer clubs and helped us kind of reinvent ourselves a little bit. I'll get to that in a second. But we, it was magical. And then they kind of repurposed all this stuff. Like we were on the news talking about like building jobs in America in like 1993.
And you're like in your mind, like, do they know who we are?
Oh my God. I was like, people are freaking out. Like it's on American Airlines. It was all over the place.
Dude, I mean.
So it was cool.
When you look back at that, I mean, and I'm sure there's so much to talk about when you go back to that project. But I mean, people are going to listen to that and be like, well, what do you mean? You got that 800 number and you put an ad in this and you started out, you had 500 members. Like there's so many decisions and so many things that you need to do before you get that 500 members, before you decide to go get that number or place that ad. What was the secret ingredient to making that really successful? Was it timing? Was it luck? Are you some type of like crazy genius and you sit there like, what happened?
I think it's luck. And, when you're 24, you just don't care. So you're like, if this doesn't work, then who cares?
Me not caring at 24, like had me in the nightclub, like next to some woman that I don't know. But meanwhile, you at 24 was like, hey, I'm going to start this company and in a couple of years, I'm going to sell it for $20 million.
Yeah, no, I mean, we didn't, we never got to a place where we just really thought about the consequences, good or bad. So we're like, let's just do it. And then, when you're, this is the thing you learn as an entrepreneur is you kind of float down the river to the next challenge and the challenge after that. And you just kind of figure it out. And sometimes you make a lot of mistakes and sometimes you get it right. And, those have been the things I think that probably have guided me as an entrepreneur more than anything. Is I generally tend, for better or for worse, to just look at opportunity, kind of understand what the opportunity is, and just jump, both feet in. And, sometimes it's great and sometimes it's a big problem.
I can imagine. I really can imagine that. I mean, when you think of the Beers Across America business, if you had to give me like one thing that we like, you know what? This one thing that happened was truly pivotal to our success. And then the second question, could you tell me one thing that you really learned from that you rolled into your next venture?
Yeah, I think it's probably the same thing. So we really started, we had no money. So we're like, how do we get the word out? And so we started, pitching this as a gift idea. So like give it, 2 6-packs to Chris, he'll love it. He's a beer drinker. And that really took off. What we learned about the business and we got smarter over time is, we thought we were in the beer business. I mean, we had no idea what the hell we were doing. So what we realized is we were in the continuity marketing business, which means that you got to understand lifetime value of your customers. You have to understand how to grow out your business, and you got to try and sell as much stuff as you can to these people for as long as possible.
Right.
So like, with a gift, it's kind of finite. Chris is going to get it for 6 months and then he's going to go away and he's going to be like, I kind of got my fill. So we really learned how to shift really more to a wine club. So when we sold the company in 2006, we sold to the world's biggest wine club, and it was predominantly a wine business. And that's because we took the time to kind of learn. And this is the thing, is you just kind of, you grow up as an entrepreneur and you're like, okay, how do we really make a go of this?
Right.
It went from being great. We actually took the company through bankruptcy because we grew so fast. We just ran out of capital. We started with $3,000, and and ultimately no one would finance the deal because of like the position we were in.
Yeah.
So we just put our homes on the line and said, fuck it, we'll get through this. And so that's what we did. So, to the victor goes the spoil. So we had some good guys around us who could help, strategically figure this out. But at the end of the day, it was myself and my partner, Lewis, who figured this out. And we're dear friends to this day. But like, it was crazy. So we learned, we learned a lot. And, and I think the one thing that's probably helped me over the course of time is my risk threshold has kind of continued to grow. And, and I understand things a little bit better. So I'm smarter about my analysis on doing a business. But at the same time, like, when you're really passionate about stuff, like you're just like, this is it,
Right. Well, and I know that you're passionate about beer and the Cubs.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about the Cubs.
Yeah, and this is something that everybody knows about Homer. But I mean, here's a question that I have for you. And I mean, and I ask these questions seriously because I come from this entrepreneurial seat that I sit in, you know? And so to have somebody like you next to me right now, it's like, okay, I want to get as much out of this. So screw the listeners. I don't care about you people right now. This is all about me and getting it. Do you think that you excel more in, like, you know, you're talking about evaluating the risk behind, you know, an opportunity or an idea? I mean, are you able to kind of see, I don't want to say see the future in a way, but like, do you have a knack at, like, you know what? I think this is something that's really going to hit it big based on where we are right now. Are you evaluating them better? Or do you just like, did you just not give a damn early in those times? You know what I mean? What was your gift then? How did you know that subscription style craft brew thing would do well? Or did you just not care and just said, screw it?
We got lucky. And, you know, we didn't care. We thought it was going to be a good idea just because people, you know, you could just kind of see the macro trends around microbrewing and people were like, yeah, this is cool. You know, and no one knew the stories behind it. So we'd write a little newsletter and stuff like that. But, and to answer your question, yeah, I think I'm better at it today. Like right now, like, you know, I run a technology business. I have for 17 years. And we're looking at an acquisition that's probably similar in size to us.
Okay.
And, you know, on paper, people are like, you're out of your friggin' mind, man. Like, you know, this just doesn't make any sense. It's a big company. And, you know, when we look through this and think about what we want to do, I have a really good idea of why I think this company is going to be an unbelievably good strategic fit for us. And, you know, and it's just taken time for me to get everyone around me, you know, on the same page and really understand what the vision looks like. But now that they're there, they're like, oh my God, this is great. And I was able to kind of piece that together pretty quickly and know that with the assets that we're getting our hands on, there's so many other, you know, kind of avenues for us to go down.
Yeah.
That, you know, like it's just, that's probably the good gift that I have right now is I've seen enough crap, good and bad, where like I can kind of ascertain the things I think are going to work out.
That's unbelievable.
And so it's, you know, that just comes with experience. And, you know, you can't, you
might have more of a knack for that, a more natural knack than you think. Of course, experience,
it helps.
It helps a ton. But I mean, I feel like there might be something going on. You know, my uncle, who's a businessman, you know, a real successful guy, he tells me that, and he told me this years ago, he doesn't invest in good ideas. He invests in good leadership teams.
Yeah, right.
He doesn't give a damn what the idea is. Don't come to him and tell him what it is. Tell him who's behind that idea.
Right.
You know, and when I think about that, you know, I wonder, you know, what message you might have. You know, what's the difference if somebody's at home right now and they have an idea, you know what I mean? Whatever that might be. And they want to do something with it. What's the big difference, do you think, between that person sitting at home, you know, who's got this idea, and the Homer, the Todd Holmes, who's taking risk and making things happen today? You know, what do you think that person might be missing or might not be thinking of that's going to be pivotal to that person's success? Because there are going to be people out there that have that idea. I really want to do that food truck. I really want to do this. I want to do that. But it's the people behind the idea that make the success. So what does that person need to have?
Just the guts to do it. I mean, listen, the chances of them failing are probably reasonably high. So, you know, like you just got to say, fuck it, let's do it. And, you know, just get out and do it. And, you know, if it works, great. And sometimes you kind of pivot into something that's totally different than what you started with. And the end result is 10 times what you expected. It's just, you wouldn't have gotten there without kind of taking that first step. Right. And, you know, you got to, as an entrepreneur, I think it's really important to float down the river a little bit, you know, kind of change your view and see where it's going to take you. But if you don't get in the water, you're never going to be able to experience the things that ultimately give you the chance to be successful.
Yeah.
So like I'm a firm, big believer in you just stay in the game. Even when things are going bad, just stay in the game. Stay in business. Don't try and reinvent yourself when you're not in business.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like it's just tough.
I think people underestimate how, I'm just going to say dangerous, but I mean, seriously, I mean, the world of being an entrepreneur, I mean, I think their expectations are that it's going to be way more stable than it is when really, you know, people don't understand. I mean, you're getting into some choppy, raging water and your ass needs to do your best to stay afloat as long as possible.
Yeah.
It's not the land of just peace and tranquility when you decide to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I do think today it's easier to be an entrepreneur than it was when I started. You know, you just have things like this. You have the ability to kind of, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's all about marketing. And you have really great, inexpensive, very professional ways of doing things you just didn't have when, you know, back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So like, you know, if you want to get your brand out and you want to do something, you know, you've got the means means to be able to do it in ways that, I think are really interesting
Totally.
and really relevant. So, I mean, I think that, and it's just going to get better and cooler. The problem is it's there's so many people kind of getting in and jumping in and doing this stuff that sometimes you have to really figure out a good idea to differentiate yourself.
Totally. And I mean, that couldn't be more true. I want to go back to what you said before about getting in this whole world of entrepreneurship. And then, you get in there for one thing and sometimes you got to pivot, and it takes you a different direction. You got in there with Beers Across America, which turned into wines, which turned into you guys being bought out. And then somehow, some way, you end up into the whole Goose Island world.
Yeah.
What the hell happened there?
So it was interesting. So we got a call from an investment bank. So I knew a guy who was like the 12th man on this deal, and they had taken a company called Bader-Brow public. And it was based in Elmhurst, run by a guy who was probably the most ill-equipped CEO on the planet. But like he's founded this thing. They ended up, kind of just screwing the business up over a course of 4 or 5 years. They went public in like 87, I think like Black Monday of 87, like, just terrible.
Yeah.
But I had known John Hall, who's the founder of the Goose Island, the brew pub, for probably 2 or 3 years at this time. He was just kind of keeping track of what we were doing at Beer Across America. We had kind of realized that shipping beers all the way across the country from these small breweries was just not a great idea. So we were looking for a resource to kind of brew the beers locally. So we take the recipes and just kind of, cut out the shipping so we could do it someplace close by. So we ended up finding, kind of common ground there. And so this group that got John Hall and I together. And they're like, we want you to buy out Bader-Brow. So we spent it was a public company. So we spent 6 months, I'm 25 years old at this time, and, trying to take this public company private. And at the last minute, the CEO walks in and he's like, I just can't, I can't sell. And we were like, fuck you. And so we went out, raised some money, started this, and we were able to buy a lot bigger equipment. We were able to do a lot more because Beer Across America needed to brew at this point in time like 25,000 cases per brewery per month. So, it gave us a lot of capacity so we could just brew the beer, and so we could grow a little bit more exponentially than we could otherwise. And so, from there, I started getting into the marketing side of Goose Island and understanding that business pretty well. And ultimately, we sold it to Budweiser, and, the team that we had in place, including John and all of our brewers are just unbelievable, really did an unbelievable job in terms of kind of being on the, kind of the bleeding edge of brewing, with things like, barrel-aged beers, 5-gallon kegs, things that no one was doing at the time. And now it's really commonplace. But, it's stuff like that, really, like, we should have held on another year because we could have made a lot more money. But, it's funny, the business is changing every day. Like, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal just talking about how no one's drinking beer anymore. And, beer consumption's down tremendously over the course of the last, probably 5 years because of the way people are consuming, hard liquor and wine and stuff like that. So it's, we got out, we're happy to do it. I wasn't involved in the day-to-day P&L of the business. I was on the board of directors and had a great time doing it. And it was cool. Like, we were in the beer business, people love it. That's all they want to talk about.
Homer, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you, and everything past the point when you said to me that you were 24, 25 years old when you were doing all this. All that other shit you said, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I think everyone else is probably going to listen to this and going to be like, they're not going to relate to that. How the hell did you have this skill set to pull this stuff off at such a young age? I mean, what was your background in school? I mean, I know
economics, man. I mean, I can barely read. You were
a football player,
right? Yeah, right.
Too.
I went to play football,
right?
Well,
you were a quarterback, right?
No. So they recruited me as an outside linebacker, like a defensive end, and then they moved me to center. I was like, this is never going to happen for me. Like, it's awful.
So here you are, this football player, economics major, and I mean, you had no experience. The family business is real estate. Yet by 24, 25 years old, you're talking acquisitions. You're doing deals with, massive companies. I mean, you're doing all this crazy stuff. I mean, are you nuts? Like, is it that you truly just don't care and you have that much confidence in yourself that you're just going to throw yourself into stuff and just figure it out as you go? Yeah,
I mean, I think that has something to do with it. We were just like, let's just give it a shot. I mean, when you really look at the world through the lens of like, what's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work. then who cares? You just go on, you do the next thing. And, I think as an entrepreneur, it's really good to kind of have that understanding. I mean, obviously, you have to have the belief that this is going to work. But, you have to have the realistic expectation that if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world.
Right. And I think that some people think that, okay, I'm going to lose money. Money.
Right.
Is losing your money the worst thing? Is that the end of the world?
No, of course not. People lose money every day.
Because that's what people think.
Right.
Oh, I don't want to do this, or I'm scared, or I'm fearful, or, oh, we're losing money, we're not making money, so now there's this panic.
Yeah.
But Homer's probably not going to panic in that situation.
No, listen, it's easier when, I've got 6 kids now, so it's harder to be like, hey, I can't pay for their college now because I invested in this insane idea.
Right.
But it's a little bit different from the standpoint of when you're growing up and you're young, it's the best time to be doing this. I see these like Shark Tank and stuff like that, and you see all these young kids, getting on doing it. It's awesome.
Right.
It's really cathartic because, some of those guys are going to be really, really successful. And, they're going to be successful because they tried.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't dare, nothing's going to happen.
That's it. I know it's cliche, but that's it.
It's true.
That's the deal.
If you go around and you ask around town about Homer, everybody says the same thing. This is the most charismatic man on the planet. Everybody loves Homer. Don't bother trying to go beer to beer with him because you're going to get your ass kicked. but really though, everyone says the same thing. You are like the eternal optimist. The glass is always half full.
Right.
You're always having fun with life. And I wonder, man, that's got to have something to do with the recipe that we're talking about here for success for you. I mean, I feel
for
like,
sure.
You are bringing an energy to what it is that you do that is so positive. You're willing to take the risk. You are a crazy man. You're a smart crazy man. But at the same time, you have this charisma and this positive outlook. I mean, do you believe right from the get-go that every single project that you decide to do is going to be a success?
For sure. I mean, you have to think that. And then you kind of put your reality cap on and you're like, all right, there's probably, you didn't never think about that in the early stages, but then you get into it and you're like, maybe this wasn't the best idea. I mean, kind of like the farming thing.
Right.
You've got to be able to pivot a little bit and say okay, I got into this for a reason. What was that fundamental reason? And, and then you have to kind of look at what you've done up to that point in time and say, well, if we do it this way, could it be better?
Right.
If we do it this way, could it be successful? And, you just got to kind of stay in the game. I mean, sometimes you got to, I've been in deals where you just cut it off. You're like, we tried it, it didn't work. Something happened where this dog's never going to hunt. But if you are really passionate about something and you can really figure, and you in your every fiber of your body, it's going to work, then you stick with it. We live in a world, where people need to eat, where the everything around us is getting, from an environmental standpoint, it's getting worse and worse and worse. Yeah. So you got to be able to figure out how to kind of solve for some of those issues, and I just believe that's just a huge macro trend.
Talk to me quickly, and I do want to talk about Harvest Moon, your company, but talk to me quickly about fear. Okay. I want to talk about fear for a second because I know that is something that is in the way for so many people out there.
Yeah.
People got great ideas and even great abilities and talents, but fear is just kicking their ass. I mean, what do you have to say to those people that are scared? I mean, it's so easy to say you just have to jump out there and do that. But the fear that's in the way, certainly when it comes to, if you're bootstrapping, you know what I mean? And you got to put it on the line. That's a serious, serious opponent to have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the fear is like, what are you fearful of? Are you fearful of failure? Are you fearful of losing money? Are you fearful of someone saying no? I think that's the thing. I mean, I wasn't classically trained in anything. I wasn't an engineer. I was a salesperson. I was just kind of born to be a salesperson. If you're a good salesperson, you got to hear no a whole bunch, and you get used to hearing no a whole bunch. And, you just got to kind of let it fall off your back and just kind of roll with it. And, and no and failure or whatever is holding someone back from being an entrepreneur, they just got to kind of get over it and just be like, well, listen, I'm probably going to get a lot of no's. I get more no's than yeses every day of the week. And, my record for calling somebody is 76 days of no's before I got a yes. And
really?
Yeah, 76 days.
Same person. You're just calling that same
every day.
Person. 76 days.
76 days.
And at no point did they decide to call the cops or
They may have. The cops just never showed up in my office. Yeah, right.
Or this man is stalking me, or like want to show up at your office and punch you in the face. Or something.
And literally, he took the meeting. He's like, "I can't believe your tenacity." So he came in, and and he bought whatever I was selling, and it happened to be beer at the time, and it turned out to be an interesting connection because he was on the board of a bank, and the bank ended up owning a brew pub that was going bankrupt, which we took over and turned into Goose Island. So that connection, he's like, I know a guy in the beer industry. So he calls me up, and then, we took it from there.
Gosh, I mean, I hear that, and I'm like, I don't know if I have that. I mean, I know that I can commit to an idea. I know that I will work my ass off. When I sit down and I really think about what you just said, calling somebody 76 days in a row, I don't know if I have that inside me to pull that off. I mean, partly because I think, okay, I'm this like big black dude. They're probably not, you know what I'm saying?
I'm scared.
Who knows? Like, I don't want to call them 76 days in a row. They're going to start to freak out. But really, though, I mean, most people don't have that level of, tenacity, as you said, you know what I mean? Or drive to just continue to shove it down someone's throat until they swallow.
Yeah, I don't think, I don't think I could call somebody 76 days in a row anymore either. But, hopefully I don't have to.
Right.
And but like I sell every day. And, even though technically like we have a lot of really, in my technology business, Liquidus, we have a bunch of really great, competent salespeople around us. And, they do the heavy lifting. But I make sales calls every day to this day. And, because it's good, but like I get lots of no's.
Crazy.
Lots of no's.
Talk to me about Liquidus.
So Liquidus is an ad tech firm. We started it 17 years ago. So, I do have a little bit of a restless spirit. And so,
you don't say.
So we've been doing beer across America for a while and really a wine club. And, I just got to a point where I kind of saw what was going on in the internet. We'd built our first website in 1996. So we were really early. Like I met this dude in LA. We were literally at a bar. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, have you heard of the internet? I'm like, what are you talking about? So we went around to like a cyber cafe, like around the corner.
There were cyber cafes in the 90s?
Yeah. And this dude ran interactive marketing. He became wildly successful for Madonna's label Maverick. And like, he was a friend of a friend. And so he like, I'm like, dude, can you build me a website? So, we built our first website like in 97. And it was really interesting. I never really grasped it until, we kind of got into this. So Liquidus, we got about 135 people working for me, and it's a real advertising technology company. So we focus in on retail, as well as like big media companies and providing them like media reach extension, helping them kind of grow their business without having to invest into the infrastructure that gives them the ability to do that. So like if you're working for Univision, who's one of our clients, you're like, hey, I'm going to sell some, product. Some of that stuff's coming from us. Some of that's their endemic, impressions. And then, if they, grow up and start looking at things that are really important to them, sometimes they take it in-house. But we provide kind of the ability for them to grow really inexpensively. And, we got some super smart people. We've been able to, build out over the course of the last decade some really world-class ad tech. And, at the end of the day, that's really what we're known for. People come to us and they're like, I love what you guys are doing. And really, it's dynamic creative. So DCO, it's a dynamic creative offering. And, so we're taking and kind of using data to find customers and then deliver the right message to them to drive them to some kind of result, either go into a store, go online. So if we know that you're like weightlifting equipment, we're going to give you the right type of relevant message with some type of offer to take you into men's physical warehouse or something like that.
Wait a minute. So what you're talking, let me see if I'm getting you right here. So what you're talking about is like the whole world of like, hey, I go on to, I don't even know what, J. Crew. I start looking at some khakis, and then the next thing I know, khakis are following me around every single
right. Yeah, that's unfortunately that's us. Yeah.
Oh, so now I know who to kick in the leg.
And that's really
it's amazing.
And that's like the most rudimentary. That's just called site retargeting. Right. So like you have so many other ways to try and get somebody into the funnel.
Right.
And pull them into a purchasing behavior that is really cool. And it applies to everything. It applies to automotive, retail.
For sure.
And so it's and we're in a really early stages of that, which I like. Even though we've been doing this for a long time, it's just, data, creative, and everything that's kind of coming together right now in such a way that's really interesting.
What is it though? I mean, because I hear you saying that, but I think back to and I'm blessed to be around really successful people all the time, and so not enough of that's rubbing off on me yet. But I'm hoping if I stay in the pocket long enough, it will. But I mean, they've told me in the past, I won't invest in anything unless I'm passionate about it. I mean, what is it about that world, the liquidous world, that you're passionate about, really?
It's funny. Like I kind of started this as a solution bait. Like let's get in. I know that things are going to get bigger in the web space, and let's figure out what to do here. And it's kind of floating down the river again. Like I realized pretty quickly, like we were a marketing services business, specializing in digital. Like the idea of going out and like getting clients over and over again, I was like, oh, this is just awful. Because I'd come from Beer Across America where it was just kind of recurring revenue models. And I was like, I like that better. So now today, we work with a lot of big clients like Lowe's and Home Depot and True Value. And these guys are cool, companies where we're providing really intricate ad tech for them, and kind of the plumbing from an advertising standpoint too. So it gives them the ability to be better, more efficient marketers, and I like that type of stuff. So it's less about like, oh my god, like I'm not nearly as passionate about that as I am like farming,
right?
But at the same time, like it's interesting, and and it solves a really really cool, interesting problem.
Well, yeah, and I find that I mean, so far all the things that you're talking about kind of do solve a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're also really good at predicting trends. I mean, with the experiences that you have, which are vast, if somebody would bring you, a piece of paper, a little outline of their idea, their company, here, Homer, this is what I'm thinking about doing, and you would have flipped through it. What would be like the top, like, what are you looking for? Is there a DNA? Are you going to say, what, this isn't really solving a problem? Or, what, you're not utilizing technology in this? Or, is the bottom line, one question, are you passionate about this, or do you just think it's a good idea? Like if you were to sit there and just consult and evaluate, is there 3 things that you're going to look at in a business plan or in a business to determine whether or not you think it would be successful?
It's probably the former, like, looking at this and what problems does it solve? What's the market size? What are the things that are going to make, this a differentiator in the market? And ultimately, like, what are your motivations for doing it? So, I mean, if you're, setting out to solve cancer, it's just a different type of business than it is if you're trying to do something else, if you're like trying to get into packaged goods. And, like if you're really, really passionate about some things, then, sometimes that passion kind of overtakes everything. But, a lot of times it's just like based on what you just said, like what's on paper, like what does the opportunity really look like? How much money can you make? What's your net margin going to look like? What are the things that are going to kind of carry the day? Like a traditional business, like when the real passion wears off.
Right.
Do you got something here?
Right.
And, it's funny, we're partnering up with a company, and sometimes it just takes time. Like, when I first saw this product, I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievably cool. I love it. I can't tell you what it is, but like the more I got into it, the more I'm like, this is a really complicated, very, very fucked up idea in terms of taking it to market. So, it just takes time to spend things with, you look at this stuff over and over and over again. And, finally, now the 50-year-old Homer's like, well, I don't know if this thing's really going to work, but like it takes some time to figure that out sometimes.
Do you think, if I was going to go back to the wise words of my uncle, I mean, if you were to put together, 2 of your, the best partners you've had, okay, you guys got a shitload of experience.
Yeah.
Do you think you could take any shitty idea and make it make money?
No, I don't.
So it's not totally true. You could not sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, it's got to be something. I mean, I think it's got to be a good idea. Like there's a lot of really crappy ideas that have, a lot of people have gotten behind and it's never worked.
Yeah.
And a lot of people 10 times smarter than I am. And so you just gotta, it's got to be a good idea. And then, it's all about execution.
Yes.
And that's important. You gotta just go to work every day, and you gotta spend time working the problem, because every day there's problems. And and that's the thing about entrepreneurs. I think that they kind of get pigeonholed into like we just we want to live up here. We want to kind of
visionary, right?
Right. I'm just a visionary. Like I don't know too many good entrepreneurs who are just visionaries. I think at the end of the day, they work the program and they work the problems, and being able to solve those things are super important.
How many pans do you have on the stove right now?
I'd say 4.
You got 4 on there.
Yeah.
Is that high or low for you?
That's average.
That's average.
Yeah, right. That's average.
That's average. So you got 4. I mean, what do you say to the people that are like, you know what? You can't be successful unless you take off all those other pans and just focus on the one. Can you sit there and kind of, okay, I'm going to put this one on the back burner for a minute, bring this one up. Can you pull that off?
You know, I'm probably better at, I found myself to be better at kind of working one problem at a time. And so, like, I've got other things that I've invested in, I'm involved in, but like, I'm much better when I'm kind of like more focused. And I've learned that over time. Like, when we got out of Goose Island, I just started doing a bunch of different things. And I found that, and a lot of them are still running today. Like, we invested heavily into apartment complexes and stuff like that. We're selling them all now. But I didn't have the time and energy to kind of really get into it to make it a really big business. And we ended up buying like 1,000 units, around the Midwest. And, we bought them at the right time. But like, I didn't love the business and I didn't really understand the business, so I kind of focused in on some of the things I think I can understand better, that I could bring more value to, and ultimately probably provide me a little bit more enjoyment. I mean, you got to have fun. You got to do it, and you got to have a good time doing it. And you got to enjoy the people who are kind of part of the ecosystem of whatever environment you're working at. Having a bunch of like MBAs walking around buying portfolios of apartments just isn't my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But like, I can talk about, farming and digital ad tech and beer with people forever. And, I like that stuff.
I mean, it seems like, and I love this because it is so, the rebel mindset, but I mean, you're living this lifestyle professionally, and in business. But at the same time, I mean, you bring all these same attributes to your personal life. But you really do. I mean, you're talking about having fun. You're talking about being passionate. Like you live this lifestyle, and you're authentic in that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Right. I mean, which I think is awesome. I mean, is that important in general for somebody that's out there trying to get something going, or they have ideas? Like, do you need to kind of take a step back and just think about, okay, dude, how is it that you're living your life? You know what I mean? Who are you? What is your why? And bring that level of authenticity into everything that you're doing. Basically, are you just on stage when it's time to talk business and then you're somebody else when you go home? Or do you just need to really think about how you're going to bring that whole world together? Because there's so much stuff out there these days. People need to feel something. Maybe you need to bring that level of authenticity to what you're doing.
Yeah. It's a great question. I think that, I'm kind of the same person all the time. And I don't really bring work home with me. I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing, kind of the way I live at work and what I do when I get home. And, I think it's been probably my biggest blessing. If I'm spending every night, not being able to sleep because of all the stress and pressures and stuff, then it just doesn't make for a very good husband and or father. And, the things I think when we really, really dig into it, like I'm the same person all the time. And, I'm the same person at work. I have to be a little bit more stern about stuff, but, I'm optimistic. I care. I want things to be better for myself and every person around me. And, that's true whether I'm at home, whether I'm at work, or, and those are things that, I really believe in. And I think and it's just natural. The people who are kind of working at trying to figure out who they are and what they want to be and, all that stuff, it's never really applied to me because I've never really given the time to conscientiously think about like, okay, who do I want to be? Because I've just kind of became that person. And, and you know what I mean?
I do. When you say this, and it sounds funny, but I mean, I think about my youngest son. He just has an energy and a charisma to him. He was just born that way.
Yeah.
Where my older son, really smart, great kid, but he worries a lot and he's way more sensitive. And Joey is just always just looking at like the bright side of everything, wants to find the beauty and the fun in life. And therefore that's just what he attracts.
Right.
I don't think he's ever going to have to sit down, in front of the mirror and start asking questions like, okay, who am I? What am I about? What's my why? What's my purpose? He can tell you right now. And
it'll be true 50 years from now.
It'll be true 50 years. And I think if you ask everybody that same question about him, they're all going to say, oh yeah, 100%. That's just how he is.
Yep.
So that was the way of Homer.
Yeah. I've got really positive parents and, it's just kind of the way it rolled. And it's funny, like, hearing stories about when I was growing up and like, my mom behind the scenes being like, let him just do his thing. Like literally I was threatened to go to like military school every other day, because I was just a hellion, and my mom was like, he'll be fine, just let him be who he is. And, it's funny, like I knew none of this at the time. She was trying to, kind of, ground me every day with my dad.
Right.
But, behind the scenes, they weren't trying to turn me into something that frankly I was probably never going to become.
Wow. What's your managing style? I mean, you said you got about 140 employees over at Liquidus right now.
Yeah.
How do you handle those people? Or are you not doing a ton of managing? I mean, maybe you got a lot of people doing that for you.
Actually, I do. And, I try. I think management is all about trying to find the most in the people that you're with.
Yeah.
So I spend most of my energy trying to make them better because all the people who they're working with, so I have to help them help themselves. And I got to help them make decisions around and the right decisions for the business. They've all got different personalities. They all have different things that they're good at, and they've got some things that they're bad at. And I just have to kind of enhance the things that they're good at. And it sounds really cliche, but it's true. Like, we have I have a guy who works for me who I absolutely think is great and brilliant, but he's got a group of people on his team who are just totally worthless. And I have to, and I'm like, we either have to do one of two things. We either have to get rid of them or we have to manage these guys into doing what's important to both of us. And, it goes against his DNA. He's a carer. He loves, he loves everyone around him. I'm like, you can't love people whose work looks like this.
Right.
And I was like, I go, it's an insult to me. It's an insult to you. And I was like, frankly, I think we should fire him because frankly, I don't ever see them doing the work that we require of them. But, I have to help get him in a position where he can make some of those decisions on his own. And I'm good at that stuff, and I'm, if I'm the one who's got to fire those people, I'll do it. I don't care. I'm not like one of those bosses who's really jovial and runs around. Frankly, I like people being a little afraid of me at work. And
being about what, 6'4", 6'5" probably helps.
it totally does. Right.
You're looking down at those people, literally.
Right. But, I think that that's what's, I think, important from a managerial style is just helping the people around you get better. And listen, I learn every day and I learn from them.
Yeah. I mean, having the right people in the right seats is super important.
Right.
You want everyone going in the same direction. Tell me, I mean, you have so many successes. And I mean, I said, I did my homework. I mean, I was reading about you, online, all these successes. When have you failed? When have you bombed? Was there anything that you tried to get going that just totally blew up in your face?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that we did that we ever really raised money for was this company called drinks.com. And so we went out, we raised $25 million from, really blue chip, people at the time, like Wasserstein Perella, Texas Pacific Group. I mean, the week we did the deal with Texas Pacific Group, they bought Continental Airlines. I mean, just to show you like how
old were you then?
We were 30. So and so, every one of these guys were Harvard MBAs and everyone was like, here's what you got to do. They're like, when you turn this on, so drinks.com was designed to be the world's largest liquor store online. So like everything that you're seeing right now is happening, we were doing 20 years ago. And we figured out a way to kind of, through the 3-tier system, sell alcoholic beverages. And so it was all branded items like Absolute and Budweiser beer and everything. So anything you wanted, we'd have it. So we pulled in all the data from every one of the distributors, took all that information, put it into a website, and people could go through and select and choose. And the nice cool thing about it was, if you didn't know anything about a wine, we hired the guy who ran editorial for Wine Spectator to write all these things. And we had we had a lot of money. So like we were like, let's go out and figure all this stuff out. But these Harvard MBAs are like, you guys are going to have tens of thousands of orders. We really need to have like an SAP backend running on your systems. And I was like, we actually have a system that processes like 150,000 orders a month. We can use that as kind of our starting point and we can kind of build from there. And they're like, you don't understand what you're talking about. It's like, all right, you got the Harvard MBA. Fine. So we'd spent so much money on building up things that frankly we shouldn't have. We should have just done what we kind of did before, which is kind of leg into it. And if it was all our money and we're the ones making those decisions, we would have made those decisions. But, I learned a lot about, like working with venture capitalists, working with people who don't really understand your business all that much and don't really care as much as you do about the bottom line. And, they've got just a different agenda. So I really, everyone needs the capital markets for sure. But finding the right people to kind of help and support your business for the long term, I think is something that's really important. Everyone was so transactional back then. It was the late 90s. Everyone's like, oh my God, you got to go public. You got to do this. I mean, That's why all these businesses kind of washed out. And the ones that were successful, like Amazon, just took their time. And they made it to the marketplace, and then, God bless them, like they just plodded along and said, this is what we're going to do. And 20 years later, they're the biggest company in the world.
I mean, do you think a lot of people lack that staying power to just kind of like you talk about before, just stay in the water and plod along and get it done? Because some people, if you don't hit it big right now or the first year, second year, you're getting some waves and some bumpy roads, whatever it is you're getting, and then boom, they're out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've never met Jeff Bezos, but he seems like a guy who really understands that very well. And I think you gotta do it. I mean, sometimes you gotta know, like you gotta sell out. That's it. You're never gonna make it further, kind of doing what you're doing, and so. Yeah, I think it just depends on the opportunity.
You have not done any of these things just like on your own. Okay, you're always partnering up with somebody.
Yeah.
And I know people like you, but what type of partners are you looking for, and how do you make those relationships work? Because it's so easy for lots of people to come together. Everyone's got their egos. Everyone has their way of doing things. How is it that you're putting together your leadership teams? What type of person do you want to partner with?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I've found myself to be much more disciplined around the people I work with now. And, I've been burned, by a couple guys who, frankly stole from us. And, I was like, oh my God, these guys are great. And you just learn more about like the real unethical habits of some of these clowns. And, I really do my background now. And, my general reaction is I like people. So I'm like, oh, I could totally work with that person. Now I'm much, much more guarded around how I create partnerships and, I think the relationship that I will have with this person prior to getting into business with them. So I can really understand them a little bit more. Whereas before I just dive in. I'd be like, yeah, sure, we'll work it out. But after going through some of these headaches, I mean, personality issues are really the driving force behind the good and the bad of all these businesses.
Oh gosh, totally.
You find yourself spending so much time working through this, meaningless crap.
Yeah.
It just sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I have this saying, where you find people, you'll find shit, and shit always stinks.
Right.
That's just the truth. Talk to me about Harvest Moon, because when you were telling me about this, and again, that was, a company you started a long time ago, but, then looking into the future and satisfying needs, I mean, you are truly being innovative with how it is that you are laying out your plans for the future for this company. It's incredible.
Yeah, my partner Bob started this farm as he was doing some filming for some folks in Argentina. So he came across this opportunity to see these organic farms down in Argentina. He's like, this is it. So he quit his job or, sold his company and started his farm in Viroqua, Wisconsin, which is beautiful. And as he's doing this, I'm like, oh my God, he's like, you got to be part of this. I was like, all right, why not? So we sold Goose Island, jumped on. I pulled a couple other guys into the deal, and we realized pretty quickly that farming sucks. It's really hard. The weather was just unsustainable. We had about 40 acres up there. We were growing beautiful kale and lots of interesting produce, great heirloom tomatoes, and and the market was like, oh my God, this is unbelievably delicious. And it was local, but it was organic, and so there were some really cool buzzwords there. But at the end of the day, we couldn't get it onto a truck because hail and famine and locusts and everything else were just screwing it up.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think the world's coming to a pivotal place where we have to understand how to grow more produce indoors. And so we started looking at opportunities and saying, let's test a couple things. And so we had good relationships with U.S. Foods, Cisco's of the world. So, some of the folks we'd been selling our produce to, and just said, ultimately, if we can do this at scale, we've got some partners in there who could be really interesting for us to sell to. So that's what we're doing right now. So we just ended up doing a deal with a place out in Michigan City. So it's like 12,000 square feet. We're actually going to test out doing some container-based farming as well. We found a really good vendor in Phoenix who's going to do some stuff for us. And, we'll see what works. And, this is a really nascent, there's some really interesting early stuff going on right now that I love, it's going to be awesome to see kind of where this industry is in 10 years.
Jeez. I mean, I am still dumbfounded by you, man. I mean, I'm really trying to figure it out. I want to just get really basic and simple right now. Do you sleep? Yes or no?
yeah, I do sleep.
How many hours of sleep do you get?
5.
5 hours?
Yeah, I'm a 5-hour sleeper. I should probably sleep more.
What time do you normally go to bed? What time do you get up?
Yeah, 12:30, 5:30.
But when you come home, you're not sitting in front of the computer just constantly working. You're enjoying family life.
Yeah. Yeah, I rarely work when I get home.
And I know this is the Homer now. This is 50-year-old Homer. Take me back 20 years ago. Was that Homer sleeping?
No.
That Homer didn't sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been a big sleeper.
That Homer was working.
Yeah.
24 hours a day.
No, we worked a lot. I mean, when we were at Beer Cross, we were working hundreds of hours, like 110 hours a week, like 115 hours a week. It was crazy. But, like you grow up, you have kids, you want to have fun, like you just can't burn it like that anymore.
Yeah, no, you can't. But I mean, everybody is going to listen to this and they're going to say, this is where I want to be. Like, I want to be like this guy. I mean, you haven't stopped smiling since you're here. You're innovating, you're passionate, you're making money, you got a great family, you're doing all this stuff. You're still a young man to me.
Let's hope.
Right? Like all this good stuff. Like, damn it. Like, what is the blueprint? If somebody at home right now is a 28-year-old kid with an idea, are you going to tell this guy right now, figure out your passions, take risk, don't worry about sleeping, get out there and connect with people? Like,
one thing led to another. We tried something, it kind of worked, and we went to the next thing and the thing after that. And you just got to be. There's some people who kind of get into their own business, and everyone's got their own DNA. Like, there's some people who are like, I need to do the same thing over and over again, even as an entrepreneur. Like, they find out what they're good at, and they just do it, and they do it, and they're ultimately rewarded when they sell the business or they're successful along the way. I found I'm probably somewhere in the middle. So, like, I like finding new challenges. I'm probably like, at the end of my rope after doing Liquidus for 17 years, like, it's time for me to kind of do a couple more things. And I just, I never see myself retiring. So, like, I want to do 2 more big things between now and 70. Like, and one of them I hope is super cool. I don't know what it's going to be, but that's what I think.
Yeah.
I'd like to have something that I was like, people would be like, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool.
Do you think of yourself as a natural born creative?
No, not at all. Yeah, I think I'm interested. I'm an interested person. And that helps me be a little bit more creative in terms of my thought process. But, I can't do anything, creatively that you would think of traditionally creative. I'm good when it comes to thinking through deals, but there's people who are better at that than I am. Like, I think I'm a good salesperson. I think I'm a pretty good cheerleader. I think I'm pretty focused in terms of kind of like taking a good idea and kind of marching forward with it. And at this point in time, understanding the things I think that are going to ultimately make it to be, at least give it the opportunity for being successful.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's what I'm, like, people would never, like, it's funny, I'm a pretty atypical technology CEO. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a developer. I'm not, a creative engineer. Like, I'm a salesperson.
Yeah.
And, I think if you put me pound for pound with some of the other salespeople or other CEOs who are in the marketplace, it's, I would probably say I'm lower on the food chain than most of these guys from a just a technical expertise.
Yeah, but you're still kicking off.
But we
awesome.
we can sell, and
Right.
that's 9/10 of the battle as far as I'm concerned.
Right now, when you analyze what we got going on in the world right now, okay, you're looking at social media, you're looking at trends, you're looking at Amazon, you're looking at all this stuff. What predictions can you make? I mean, if you could just say, what, I think this is going to be big, or this is going to be big. I mean, what does the future look like to Homer?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I look at there's so much weird stuff going on with social media and everything else. Like, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what it evolves into. Like, with everything that is going on both sides of the parties and all these news, like, there's just news parties. Like, I was watching the news today, like, talking about making things like calling Steven Spielberg like a pedophile and putting all these stories out into the world. It's just garbage.
Crazy.
And, so how are people going to be able to sift through what's real and really believe it and trust that they believe it? I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of what filters get in place that allow mainstream normal America to be like, this is the way this is really what's happening, and this is what I trust. And that, I think, is going to be the between now and 2020 is going to be the number one challenge, is how this is going to kind of play itself out across all the mediums that we're exploring.
And you're right, because right now it really doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Right.
Right. I mean, the second it just gets put out there, that's it. It's already had its impact. People form their opinions. It's crazy. And it happens so fast, lightning fast.
Yeah, and it's a one-way dialogue. I mean, they don't do, the White House doesn't do press, day anymore. They do 3. They did 3 this month. I mean, they used to do them all the time. And, they don't want a dialogue. They just want to throw stuff out in tweets and everything else. And that's it. And I think that's, it's going to really complicate the way people think about stuff. And, frankly, it bodes well for guys like Trump because he's really a good soundbite guy.
Right.
And, the world, hopefully we can grow into a world that's just not a big soundbite. And, there's some real truth behind, what we're hearing and what people believe in. And, I think that's going to be the biggest challenge / opportunity between now and 2020.
Now, how are you going to maximize on that opportunity?
That part I don't know. But I have no idea.
I'm sure you have notes.
I'm still just digesting all this craziness that's going on. Like, it's just nuts.
It's so crazy for you, man. I mean, I know you said you want, you got, a couple things up your sleeve still that you want to pull off before 70. And I love the Harvest Moon project. I think that's going to be, I don't know if that's one of the 2 things, but that.
No, but
it sounds like it's really going to be powerful and impactful. But I mean, what space are you looking to enter when you think about these last 2 things? I mean, is it something that is totally new to Homer?
Honestly, I haven't really
you don't even know.
I don't even know. I just know that I got 19 years to figure it out. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's kind of it.
Unbelievable. As far as just some tips out there that you can give people, just kind of closing tips for people.
Sure.
What would you say to all the budding entrepreneurs out there?
Don't take no. Just kind of go with your gut and think through things. What sounds like a great idea on paper, like if you have the time to kind of chew through this a little bit, don't question yourself, but question the idea. Always believe in yourself and always believe that you can do something. And even if this isn't the idea that's going to, kind of be your breakout, there's probably 50 others or 100 others behind it. And I've always kind of believed that, like, I've never been one of those people who are like, I'm going to really stay guarded and not talk about, things I think to be cool and interesting in the marketplace. Because if someone takes and steals my idea and kind of runs with it, well, I got more in the gas tank. And I think that that's important for people is they have to get out and they have to socialize their ideas with people. They got to say, what do you think about this? Start to really pull in information and data from the people who they trust and that they like and that they believe could help them, get this off the ground, whether those are financial resources or technical resources or anything that would help them, kind of turn this idea into a reality and hopefully that reality into success. And, it's funny, I ran into a guy on the street. So when we were working in real estate together, like I told him about Beer Across America and he was literally like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my entire life. So I was literally walking to down to see my daughter and, I ran into this guy. I haven't seen him in 20 plus years, 30 years almost. And he's working in real estate still. He's miserable. And, but he brought it up. I said, hey, Bob, why don't we go grab a beer? Literally, he was walking down the same place I was. So we had a beer and he goes, do you remember when I told you that was the dumbest idea ever? I go, every day, and he's just like, he goes, God, I couldn't be more wrong. And I just started laughing. He goes, I think about you all the time. And, you have people who are just naysayers he's just a miserable person.
Do those naysayers motivate you?
Or
does Homer not really care?
I don't really care. I don't really care. I don't really care if you think this is a bad idea. If I think it's a good idea, I'm going to do it.
Right.
I mean, if I trust you and I really think okay, I'm going to really dig in and, but sometimes, you just got to kind of push through and, and I got to convince you that, I think this is a really good idea and this is why we should do it. And after a long time of convincing you and other people, then maybe I got to reevaluate.
Right.
But I think it's good to just kind of, as long as you're not hurting anybody, just to try it, see what happens.
Yeah, those are the words to live by. Right. Yeah. I mean, I firmly believe that at least for myself, I'm here to collect experiences. Not just paper, and I say that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously paper is great. But experiences, the greatest things in life are free. And so you got to get out there and try, I mean, how much did you learn from attempting drinks.com?
Everything. Right. I mean, listen, the failures I've had significantly outweigh the successes in terms of learning experiences. That's it. Yeah. You don't really learn a whole lot from succeeding, but what you learn from failure is that you probably don't want to fail the next time.
Right.
And those are things that, I've learned exponentially more from failure.
Yeah. Are you going to write a book?
No.
Are you a terrible writer?
No. I'm a pretty good writer, actually. I probably write a little bit like Keith Richards, if you've ever read any of his stuff. Like, I write like I speak. Okay. And so, I'm not sure if anyone's ready to digest that, but maybe I'll do a blog or something like that.
So there's going to be some F-bombs and tangents here and there.
Yeah, his was like Cockney, I'm not sure mine would be. But no, I don't really have, this never been a big motivator for me.
You know what? I'm lucky to have you in here, but how do people get more of Homer? Do you have a blog going? Can people find you on social media? Can people follow you on Twitter? What if people want to be touched by the Mr. Miyagi of entrepreneurship? How can they pull this off? Or are they just screwed?
Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter. They can, shoot me an email if they want to talk. I'm pretty responsive. So it's todd@liquidus.net. You can see me online and, they can Google me.
And it's actually you responding. It's not like some machine or some 24-year-old secretary or something like that.
Right.
It's actually you.
Of course. Right. they're not going to get anything. They'll get the unabridged version like this. But it's cool.
Amazing, man. Homer, thank you so much for being
my God,
here, man.
awesome. Hope this was great.
Yeah, no, you're great. And I'm inspired. I still have a million more questions for you, but those are questions I think I'm just going to have to
We'll do this again.
ask. Yeah, just over time. So
awesome.
You're amazing, man. Thank you so much for coming
in. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Like Homer was saying, you can't be afraid to try. You can't be afraid to jump in the river and do your thing. And, that's what is so amazing about the world of entrepreneurship and taking risk, that it's a decision that you have to make solely on your own, whether or not you want to jump in and you want to get in the game. There are no guarantees. There are no promises. And that whole world, the water is deeper than you think. It's colder than you think. But if you stay in there, believe in yourself, and if you have a good idea, because it sounds like you actually need one these days. So if you have a good idea, you might actually reap the rewards of your efforts. So stay in there. I want to thank everybody here at MediaPods, as I always do, all the guys behind the scenes. They do an amazing job. Go to MediaPods.com. Also go to therebelmindset.com. Check out who our next guest is, which, by the way, I've got an awesome guest coming here next. I've got Emmy Award-winning journalist Dina Baer and cancer survivor. She's tough.
Cool.
She is tough. So she's going to be in here next with me talking about her fight in trying to beat cancer, amongst other things. So definitely stay tuned for that. And until then, Rebel on.
Thanks a lot, everybody.